friends, welcome back to Piano Lessons with Joel for your next piano lesson. Let's get started right away in our all-in-one course on page 51 for our warm-up. Then we'll get on to page 52 and 53 to name our notes in the G position and also name melodic intervals and the harmonic intervals. And then we'll get on to page 54, which is the meat of our lesson today, and we'll talk about the sharp sign, what the sharp means on the piano. And yes, we will be playing on the black keys starting today. So let's get to our warm-up on page 51. Remember that Love Somebody at the top there, we have the direction to play happily. So we're going to be happy playing this piece. We will take the repeat, get your right hand thumb on G, and get your left hand ready to go in that second, the interval of a second, with C and D. And then we're moving to the third and then to the fourth there. And again, in your practicing at home, the direction was to practice hands separately and then put your hands together. So hopefully you did that and you're ready to go. All right, let's take it at about 1, 2, ready and go. Left hand comes in. Repeat and one. All right, a couple more things about that piece. First time we are to play forte, the second time we're playing piano. So the first time is a little bit stronger, the second time we're playing a little bit softer. The other major point with this one is that we're continuing to work on playing legato. We have the slur markings over the first measure, the third measure, the fifth, the seventh and the eighth measures, and so forth. So again, no matter whether you see the slur markings or not, we're working on playing legato, which means smooth and connected. And yes, playing those repeated notes with either the left hand or the right hand where we have repeated notes, those are a challenge to play legato. For example, the last two measures, your right hand is repeating. So you're really finding that happy medium of repeating those notes in a very smooth fashion and not making it choppy. And we don't want that much space in between each note, so we really work on that. And if you work on bringing your hands around, feeling that movement, that will help you with playing smoothly. Let's move on to a friend like you. Before playing hands together, play left hand alone, naming each harmonic interval. Okay, so that's what we worked on last week, and again, hopefully that's what you worked on for today's lesson. We begin on beat number 2. This is an incomplete measure at the beginning. Beat 1 of the first measure is way at the end. And we have the repeat. So let's take the repeat. I'll give you 2, 3, 4, 1, and we come in on beat number 2. We're focusing on playing legato. We have some tied notes in here. And here we go. 2, 3, 4, 1. Now at the end you do see they have repeat with left hand one octave or 8 notes lower. So when you repeat, you can play it down here. If you wish. Okay, I'll leave that one up to you. Let's turn the page. Writing in G position. In the last lesson, we took care of naming the notes. Let's jump down to number 3 here, where we were to write notes from the G position that spell these words. The note values in each measure must add up to 4 counts. Turn note stems down when notes are on or above the middle line of either staff. Turn note stems up when notes are below the middle line. So we've talked about that at length before. How did you make out with drawing your notes? With making like that real thick dash, either this more vertical when they're on the line and a little bit more horizontal when they're on or in the space, and then making that complete note head when you're making your half notes. So this is what mine looks like. Again, you're doing this. You don't have to be perfect, but just make sure when you're writing your notes, you're making the notes so that they're legible. Just take your time when you're drawing your notes. I'm going to go ahead and play mine, and let's see if yours and mine match up at all. Again, we had to put in half notes so that these measures added up to 4 beats each. So 1 note in each measure had to be a half note. So this is what my composition sounds like. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and G, B, B, D. Yeah, I bet you never knew that the word dad sounded like that, right? All right, let's move on to the bass clef with the left hand. This is what my composition sounds like. 4, 1, 2, 2. Okay, so I'm curious as to what yours sounds like. So they're going to be similar. You may put your half notes in different places than I did. I'm sure that you did put your half notes in a different spot than I did. And I'm trusting that you have all those notes correct. Go back up to number 1 to check yourself. Go to the top of the page to check yourself to make sure all your notes are correct there. Moving on to page 53. Melodic intervals in G position. Write the names of the notes in the boxes above the staffs. Write the names of the intervals in the boxes below the staff. So again, we've done this activity or this particular exercise a few times before, so I'm not going to write these on the board. However, I will play them, and I'll go through the note names as we do it. Okay, so the first one, when we go from G to A, that's a second. The next one is a third. The next one is a fourth from the G to C. And then the last one is a fifth from G to D. All right, so let's play that. We'll say our note names. And we'll say our note names as we play. Starting on G. 1, 2, ready, and go. G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D. Okay. Now in the second line there, when we get to the bass clef with the left hand, we again start with G, and we have a fifth from the G to the D. Then the next measure we have a fourth, G to the C, and then G to B. That's a third, and G to A is a second. So make sure you have those intervals written in your box at the bottom or underneath each staff there. Okay, so let's play this one. Starting on G, and our pinky again will be on the D. 1, 2, ready, and go. G, D, G, C, G, D, G. Okay, pretty straightforward with that. Let's go to the next one, harmonic intervals in G position. Write the names and the notes in the boxes above the staffs, and then put the interval below. All right, so same thing. We go from G to D. This is in 3/4 time, so we only get 3 beats in a measure here. So G to D, that's our 5th. G to C, the 4th. G to B is our 3rd. G to A, 2nd. Then back to the B is a 3rd. C is a 4th. D is a 5th. Okay, let's play these together. So we start with the 5th. 1, ready, go. G and D. 2, 3. 2. Now to G and B. 3rd. 2nd. G and B. 2, 3. G and C. G and D. Okay, let's go to the bottom. Our first 2 notes, that's a 2nd. G and B is a 3rd. G and C is a 4th. G and D is a 5th. Back to the 4th. G and B is a 3rd. 2nd. Okay, and make sure you have all that written in. And how about we play together? Again, we're in 3/4 time. So we're counting to 3 for each one of these dotted half notes. 1, ready, and go. G and A. 2, 3. G and B. 2, 3. G and C. 2. G and D. 2. G and C. 2. And G and A. 2. Okay, well done. Make sure you have both of those pages complete before you turn the page. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video now and take care of writing all that in. In the meantime, we will turn the page to the sharp sign. The sharp sign before a note means play the next key to the right, whether black or white. So there are occasions where when we see a sharp sign, we're actually going to play one of the white keys, such as E sharp or B sharp. We're not going to worry about them right now. We're going to focus more on getting to play some of the black keys on the piano. When a sharp appears before a note, it applies to that note for the rest of the measure. Circle the notes that are sharp. So in here we see we have a C sharp, and then that next measure, or I'm sorry, the next C in that measure also needs to be a C sharp. In the second measure there, where we have a B and then a C, that's a C natural. Okay, that is tricky. That is a C natural there. And then we have an A sharp followed by another A sharp. And then, of course, on to the B in the next measure. Okay, so that gets a little tricky. And that, my friends, all musicians often write in those sharps when they happen again in the measure and they're not notated. We often have to pick up a pencil to remind ourselves to make sure we play that next note as a sharp or whatever that note is changed to. In this case, it's a sharp. Okay, money can't buy everything. You're correct, money cannot buy everything. All right, so a C sharp, let's talk about that first. So a C is here. Okay, C is here. The C sharp is right there. Okay, just above the C. Let's pick another note. Okay, let's do the A sharp. So here's our A. There's A. And an A sharp is right there. Okay, we call that a half step higher than A. So here's our A, and a half step higher than A is A sharp. Okay, a full step higher than A is B. Okay, a half step higher than A is A sharp. Half step higher than C, C sharp. Half step higher than G, G sharp. Half step higher than F, F sharp. Okay? So hopefully you're kind of catching on to that. Slow this section down if you need to. All right, let's get to money can't buy everything. So for this, let's do one hand at a time because this may be the first time we're looking at this one, unless you went on from the last lesson. So for this, we're going to be in G position again, and we're going to put our fourth finger on that C sharp, and then just kind of bring yourself back to the D. So the first line, I'm just going to play the first line with my right hand, starting right at the beginning. Ready, here we go. D. Now we come into the measure with the A sharp, so I'm going to use my second finger for the A sharp, starting on B there. Okay. You see in the next line we don't have any sharps. The third system down, we repeat basically the first system, right? Or the first line. And then the bottom, we have no sharps down there. Let's put hands together here. Okay, if you're ready for that, put hands together. If not, just play along with your right hand. Okay, 1, 2, ready, and C sharp. A sharp. For the C sharp again. Realizing that that is a bit new for you, you may need to slow it down. You may need to go back and practice one hand at a time, and then go back into the recording, go back into this video and play it again with me. Don't speed it up, okay? Keep it nice and slow because we have those new sharps in there. All right, let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about sharps. We have plenty to talk about in sharps, but feel free to let me know. Okay. Writing the sharp sign. So this will be your homework, okay? But let me go over what we're doing here. Let me go to the board for this. To begin with, you notice that sharp signs look a little bit like hashtags. But what I like to tell my students is that, well, of course, sharp signs were around long before we started using that exact same symbol as a hashtag. And they also look a lot like the number sign as well. Okay, so we're going to practice making our sharp signs. And let me just take a spot. I'll take a spot right here on the board. They would like for you to draw 2 lines down. Okay, and then they want you to make the heavy slanting lines, which for us is just going to be, they're not necessarily going to be any more bold or heavier than our lines that go down. So when we're writing, okay, just something like that. Now the important part, number one, when we're writing the sharps to be played on an instrument, we need to make sure that we put the sharp before the note. That way, as you're reading from left to right, you see that that note is going, or is meant to be, a sharp. If you put the sharp after the note, that doesn't necessarily help us. So make sure that you are putting the sharp on the left side of the note. Let's do this one here. So again, I'm just going to bring this down. And I'm placing the interior of the sharp, that part right there, as if it were in the space itself or on the line. Let's do this one over here. You can see I have that kind of right in the center of the lines there. And they do mention that under number 3, when writing sharp signs, be sure the center of the sign is on the line or space of the note to be sharped, just to keep things as neat as possible. You don't want to make this sharp sign and put it way up there. It doesn't necessarily look like it's referring to that note. So again, 2 lines down, and then make sure the line is going directly through the sharp sign. Let's go ahead down here. So this is, where are we here? We're on the bass part right there. Okay, see I have all mine already done. And we're in 3/4 here. 3/4, which means I need to change my bar lines here, don't I? That looks better. All right, so let's put our sharp sign there. And our D is going to be a D sharp. And that's going to be our F sharp, making sure the line goes right through the middle of the sharp sign. And let's do this last one here, G sharp. Okay, so take your time when you do that. You're using your pencil, just take your time and make that sharp sign. All right, let's get back into the book and we'll talk about your homework for this coming lesson. Before we talk about homework, let's go over the notes that I just put up on the board for you, which is actually the homework you have on the number 5 there. So we are to write in the C sharp, the D sharp, and the F sharp. So just to confirm that C sharp is here. Okay, here's your C, and here's your C sharp. Okay, your D is here, and here's your D sharp. Here's F, F sharp is here. Here's your G sharp, A sharp, and all the way up to the C sharp that they have there. And then on over to D sharp, and back to F sharp. In this section, you see they want you to play the notes using right hand third finger or your left hand third finger, depending on what clef you're playing in. So go ahead and play them, and I suggest that you can use your third finger for each one of the notes. But I'm also going to recommend that you use other finger combinations as well for all of these notes. Okay, have a little fun with that. You can do all third finger if you want. And then be sure you're counting. I wasn't necessarily counting on each one of those notes, but make sure you count. The right hand treble clef, we're doing half notes. The left hand bass clef one, we're doing dotted half notes. We're in 3/4 time. And then at the bottom, we're doing hands together there. Go ahead and write in your sharp note names there and go ahead and practice that. All right, so that is your homework. We're going to work on page 55. You have practice at the top. You see 4 boxes there. You're going to write in your sharp signs there. Again, take your time. And then in number 2, you're going to write in the note that they're pointing to. I will give you a hint. The first one in number 2 is F sharp. You go ahead and fill out the rest of them. There's only 4 more to do. And then in number 5, you're writing in the sharps before the notes, just as we did up here on the board. and then you're also writing in the note name. So the first one you have your sharp written in, and then you have C sharp in the box there. That is your homework. And then I want you to turn the page to page 56 and 57. Start reading about the fingering issues that have been discovered over time as far as your weaker fingers. We've talked a little bit about this before. And then number 50 or page 57. Honestly, I'm not quite sure how to say this person's name. Letchitsky. I'll let you work on pronouncing that name. How about we do that as part of my homework too? We'll figure out how to say that name. So go ahead and look at both of those pages. But the emphasis for this week, get familiar with sharps, how to write sharps, how they get placed before each note. And then be sure you are practicing page 54 and go back and work on G position on page 52. And you can even go back as far as page 51, Love Somebody and a Friend Like You, which was part of our warm-up for today. All right, that's it for today, my friends. Not an extremely long lesson today, I know. Until the next time you have your homework, and I wish you happy practicing. Take care.